Perspective Files. I'm Tara, and today I'm going to tell you the top 5 perfumers in my fragrance collection. Now, this is based entirely on numbers, so basically I keep a spreadsheet of every single fragrance that I have with the perfumer next to the name of the fragrance. Now, obviously I have many fragrances that I cannot find out who the perfumer is, so, you know, maybe these aren't my actual top 5 if I were to be able to find out the names of those. But for the ones that I do have that information, what I did was I went through my entire list and I looked for those who I had the most fragrances from, and these are they. But before we get started, first of all, do you like my dress? It is my graduation dress, which I did not get to wear this year or last year because we couldn't go to graduation. But decided to wear this today, and you need to check out my earrings because they're fire. Check those out. Isn't that awesome? Love them. So some stuff that I don't get to wear very often. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, the first 3 I'm going to talk about, I have 5 fragrances from each of them, and then the last 2 I have 7 fragrances. So I'll kind of go, I don't really know how to put them in order otherwise, but I'll just do the first 3 and then the last 2. The first perfumer I'm going to feature is Francois DEMACHY, and the reason why I have 5 from him is because he is the in-house perfumer for Dior, and I have at least 5. I have more than 5, but I have several fragrances from Dior. Now, for each one, I'm not going to go through all of the fragrances because that would take forever. What I will do is I will pick 2 from each perfumer to talk a little bit more about, maybe my 2 favorites, although there were a couple in which one of my favorites was discontinued and you pretty much just can't get it at all anymore. So in those cases, I chose a different one. But anyway, the 5 that I have from Francois DEMACHY are Ambre Nuit, Dior Homme Intense, Faible Delicieux, Gris Dior, and Miss Dior Les Parfums. And so the 2 that I've decided to feature today are Dior Homme Intense and Ambre Nuit. So Dior Homme Intense is obviously marketed towards men, but I find it to be incredibly unisex. I also would love to smell this on a man, but this is just this amazing sort of slightly lipsticky iris. There's Ambre in here, which gives a little bit of a dirtiness, but not too much. It's woody. There's like pear, a touch of lavender, but not to the point that makes it really that masculine. And then also a little bit of a nice sort of hay-like vetiver in here that I really like. I love the combination of iris and vetiver, and also I like Ambre a lot, which is probably part of the reason why I really like this. And I like iris and like woody notes as well. So this is just a great combination. One of my favorite fragrances from Dior, but also just probably kind of in general. I really love this one. The other one that I picked to feature from Francois DEMACHY is Ambre Nuit. And although you know I love Feb, I love Gris Dior, I love several other ones that I have from this collection. Lately, this has been one that I've fallen quite heavily in love with. I've gone through some decants previously, and the more I've worn it, the more I love it. Now, there are some other ones from this line that I still have my eye on getting, but really love Ambre Nuit. This is like a rose amber fragrance, and it is just absolutely delicious. Again, very unisex. It's kind of like, I would say the amber is maybe the tiniest bit more prominent than the rose, but they're almost in equal proportion in this one. And it's just like this really soft, slightly powdery, well-blended combination of the 2. So I really love Ambre Nuit as well, another one of my favorites. But as you probably know, I really love the Maison Christian Dior line as a whole. I'm not entirely surprised by the next perfumer either. Next up is Sonia Constant, and I really like a lot of her fragrances, and I knew I had at least a few. I have 5 again to be exact. And the 5 that I have that she created are Noire Parfum from Tom Ford, as well as Valentino Donna Acqua, Dancing Roses from Viktor and Rolf. That one is discontinued. I love it, but you can't get it anymore. And then also La Belle and La Belle Les Parfums from Jean-Paul Gaultier. Now, the first one that I want to feature is the Tom Ford Noire Parfum, and I've done a whole video comparing this to the extreme version. It's actually one of the first videos I ever did on my channel, so I will link that. That was nearly 100 videos ago. Anyway, this one I think is very unisex, and it doesn't say Parfum anywhere here, so like if you're worried about that, don't worry, because it doesn't look particularly feminine or masculine either, but wow, this fragrance is just a complete stunner. So this has an accord in it that's supposed to mimic the sort of ice cream dessert called kulfi, and I think if I remember correctly, that often features like different spices, maybe pistachio, things like that, but you definitely get that sort of gourmand, desserty, creamy feel from this. Definitely spices, vanilla, probably some amber, a little bit of ginger, I think maybe in here, and some woodiness as well. I would guess with the creaminess that's going on, it's probably sandalwood. But this, first of all, it performs pretty well, like quite well, on me at least, and it projects very well also. I've definitely oversprayed this one before, so you have to be careful about that, but this is like a gourmand that isn't too sweet. I think that the spices and the woodiness sort of helps with that. But I do think that this would smell great on a man as well, and I just love this. This has got to be one of my favorite gourmandy kind of fragrances that I also think is not like juvenile at all. I think this is quite sensual and definitely worthy of a night out. The other fragrance that I picked to feature from Sonia Constant, she did in collaboration with the next perfumer I'm going to talk about, and that is Quentin BISCH. And the fragrance, well, they've done a couple of fragrances at least together, but the one that I picked is La Belle Les Parfums Intense. And here you go, that's the bottle for this one. Looks like the original, just that it has like this ombre thing going on where it's dark at the top and then goes down to kind of the original color. I picked this one because I actually think I prefer it a little bit over the original. Now, I love the original, don't get me wrong, I love them both. These are, again, fantastic gourmand fragrances. So this one has substituted tonka in, so it's pear, vanilla, and tonka. The pear is shorter lived, I think, in this one, and it's not quite as juicy after the first half hour as in the original, which at first I thought, well, maybe I like the original more because I really like that pear note, but then this vanilla tonka combo in here with the sweetness going on, it is just absolutely like mouth-wateringly delicious. Again, I think this one is definitely sweeter than the last one I talked about, but for me, again, it's a quite sexy fragrance. It is one that people will notice and I think will really enjoy. And if a guy wants to wear it, go for it. But to me, this one I do imagine a little bit more on a female, especially at nighttime. But either way, fantastic fragrance. And so, like I said, Sonia did this with Quentin BISCH. And now let's talk a little bit about him. You know, he is my perfumer boyfriend. But I will say lately, Antoine Lee has been trying to steal me from Quentin because I've been really crazy over some of his fragrances lately. Anyway, let's talk about Quentin because he's still my perfume boyfriend. The one that I want to feature also in addition to La Belle Les Parfums Intense is Delina Exclusif. And you all know that this was my #1 fragrance in my rose video. It is my favorite rose-centric fragrance. And Delina is fantastic as well. He also did that one. I only have a travel spray of Delina. The other ones that I have from Quentin BISCH, well, are La Belle and La Belle Les Parfums. And then I have the Delina Exclusif, I have Mystery Tobacco, and Nomad Absolu from Chloe. Oh, and Mystery Tobacco was from Carolina Herrera, the Confidentials collection. So anyway, those are the ones that I have from him, but let's talk about this one because I love it. Y'all know I love it. So this is like rose, lychee, there's a touch of oud and vanilla. There's, I think, a little bit of pear in here too, which also was featured in the last one, or actually a couple that I've talked about already. But, oh, it's just so beautiful. But this one, to me, as compared to the original, is a little bit more well-rounded, probably because of the oud that's in there and the vanilla. It's got a little bit of a sweetness to it, but then that like nice fresh lychee rose sort of thing going on too. It's just stunning. This is one of the absolute most beautiful, quote unquote, perfumes that I do wear. I don't tend to wear a lot of particularly pretty types of fragrances, but this is one that I do for sure, and I love it. This is fantastic, and again, one of my favorites. I don't care how much hype it's gotten. Actually, the original gets more hype than this one does, but this is my favorite. I love it. And if other people want to wear it, great. I'm still going to wear it because I love it that much. All right, now we're getting to the top 2, and from both of these perfumers, I currently own 7 fragrances. The first perfumer I want to talk about, I actually featured 3 of her citrus fragrances in my citrus video I did recently, so I'll link that if you didn't watch it. But the perfumer is Marie Salamagne, and I have from her 3 from Atelier des Ors. I have Courtisange, Lune Féline, and Rouge Saray. I also have Christian Louboutin Louis Rouge. I have Guerlain Mandarin Basilic, Jo Malone Orange Peel, and of course replicas by the Fireplace. So those are the 7 fragrances that I have from Marie. Now, like I said, I did feature 3 of her citrus fragrances recently, so I did not choose any of those, but I chose a couple that are a little different, because I thought about doing Lune Féline, but then I definitely wanted to do By the Fireplace, and those 2 actually are fairly similar. So instead, what I've chosen is Rouge Saray for the first one, and this is another somewhat gourmand-leaning fragrance, but I really, really love this, and again, the bottles are always fun to look at. So Rouge Saray has these fruit notes in it, like plum, dates, etc., but really I think it's like the dried fruit, the dates, that I get a lot of in this. There's vanilla and cinnamon as well that really stand out in this fragrance. Like I said, this is another gourmand style fragrance, although less sweet than several of the others I've talked about so far. There's also, I think, a bit of sandalwood in this one, and I believe in this one there is Peru balsam, which is a note that you know, never really seems to be like super featured in a fragrance, but I found that there are many fragrances that I love that include it as a note. So again, another example of that here, but this one, it's just sweet enough to be gourmand, but at the same time, I think that the woodiness, the Peru balsam, I think that brings it down a little bit so that it's not too sweet, not too cloying, but this one is just absolutely delicious, and I love this one. I don't know if I like this more than Lune Féline or not, but honestly, all 3 that I have from Atelier des Ors, I really, really love. So that's, you know, a house to check out. I also recently tried Iris Fauve from them, and I'm thinking about getting that one too because it's really good. And then of course the other fragrance of Marie's that I wanted to feature is from Replica, and it is called By the Fireplace. You've probably heard of this one. It's quite popular. So this again features vanilla and Peru balsam, but here it has obviously like woods. I don't know if it's birch or what to get kind of that smoky vibe. I think the Peru balsam can give fragrances maybe a bit of a smokiness as well. Because I've noticed it's in like, it's also in Lune Féline, for example. There's another fragrance that has like a little bit of a smoke sort of vibe to it. Maybe it's Wonder Woman 84 from House of Sillage. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think that kind of gives it a little bit of a smokiness vibe to it. So this one smells like sweet toasted chestnuts that you're like roasting on a fire. You definitely get the sweetness from the vanilla, but there is that nuttiness as well, and a little bit of smokiness, but it's not like, you know, bonfire smoke. It's like just a touch of smokiness, and it's so good. I love this fragrance. I forget how much I love this fragrance. Like, you know, I won't reach for this at all during the summertime ever. I just never do. And it'll probably be well into the fall, if not pretty much winter, before I pick this up. And every time I do, I just am like, oh yeah, I freaking love this fragrance. It's just so cozy. And I did get this quite a while ago as a Christmas present from my mom, so that makes it also special. So though I did not realize that I had 7 from Marie Salamagne, I was not at all surprised that I had 7 from this next perfumer. She is definitely one I would consider a favorite, and that is Daniela ANDRIER. And she is the in-house perfumer for Prada, which explains why I do have so many of her fragrances. However, I have some from some other houses as well. For example, I have Carner Barcelona Tardes. I love that one. Guerlain Angelique Noire, one of my favorite fragrances, just period, hands down. And then from Prada, I have Desert Serenade, Infusion d'Iris, Miracle of Rose, Purple Rain, and Soleil à Zenith. So mostly, or I should say 5 of those anyway, are from Prada, but also I have some from other houses as well. well. Let's go ahead though and start with a Prada fragrance. I thought about putting Infusion d'Iris in because it is a classic, and you know, I think she's very well known for that. But what I decided to do is pick my slightly preferred iris fragrance from her. I think she does iris really, really well. I mean, I know she does iris really, really well. And that one is Purple Rain. So Purple Rain is in many ways similar. It still has that clean, soapy iris, that, like, you know, sort of refreshing iris that that Infusion d'Iris has. Here it might go a tiny bit more powdery, but not a lot. I also in this one get more vetiver. Actually, I don't even know that vetiver is in Infusion d'Iris, come to think of it, but I definitely get a lot of vetiver in this one. I can pick up on violet as well. If you know, like, maybe that's where the powderiness is coming from, because violet often smells like powder to me, like the makeup powder, I mean. And so I get that, but I still get like the clean musk like you get in Infusion d'Iris, maybe a bit of citrus like you get in Infusion d'Iris as well. And this is just, oh, this is a treat. I do think this is very, very much unisex. Well, I mean, it's, I think, marketed as unisex anyway, but I think because of the vetiver, I think it's even more unisex than Infusion d'Iris is, and I already think that one is completely unisex. But wow, I really love this one. I think if you're looking for something a little different from Infusion d'Iris, but still in that same line, then Purple Rain might be one to check out. Of course, you can't lose with the name Purple Rain and this beautiful bottle, but the scent itself is just fantastic. Iris the way that no one else can do it, or very few people can do it. Also, Natalie Lorson, she's not on this list, she's a favorite, and another one that can do iris like no one else. All right, and for my last pick from Daniela Andrier, I had to go with one of my favorite fragrances of all time. This is Guerlain's Angelique Noire, and you can see that I'm running low on this one. I will definitely repurchase a third bottle. I had, this is my second, a third bottle once this is gone. This is Angelica Vanilla. I think there's a little bit of pink pepper in here. There's some woodiness, and then I think there might be, I don't know, there might be a touch of florals, but I don't really get a lot of that. To me, this is mostly that like slightly green Angelica with the vanilla. The vanilla is really the star of the show, to be honest, but I would say that in terms of a green vanilla, this is my favorite of all time. Like, of any that I've smelled, I consider like Ani from Nichane to be a green vanilla. I would even say that like in some ways, the Architects Club from Arquiste can go a little bit in that direction, although it's very similar to Eau d'Oil, which is maybe a little more spicy. But anyway, still my favorite. I love this particular green vanilla more than any other. And I think that that pink pepper gives it some like kind of lift to it, and keeps it a little bit more interesting than just straight, you know, slightly green vanilla with the Angelica. But man, the Angelica in here is just phenomenal. If you've never smelled this, I highly recommend you try to find a sample or a decant or something. Don't ask me for a decant because I'm keeping this for myself, okay? But if you can find that somewhere, I'm sure you can. Definitely give it a try, because I just think this is an absolutely stunning fragrance. Again, completely unisex. I know a lot of men who absolutely love this fragrance as well. And this whole line in general, I just adore. But another fantastic fragrance from Daniela, and just one of my favorites of all time. All right, so those are the top 5 perfumers from my collection. Again, this was based totally on how many perfumes I own from them, although I do think that that does tell a story, right? Like, if I tend to own full bottles and keep full bottles of fragrances from these perfumers, it must mean that at least in some ways, I really like their style of perfumery. Like I said, there are a lot of favorites that I have that were not included. I already mentioned Natalie Lorson, Antoine Lee, Cécile Zarokian, I really like, Dominique Ropian. There's just so many. Like, I'm going to miss a bunch because there's just so many that I really, really love. But I just didn't have at least 5 fragrances from any of those currently. So now what I would like to ask is, who are your favorite perfumers? Like, maybe you just kind of know, or maybe you've started to notice patterns in what you've purchased. I always think that it's a really great idea, first of all, to give credit to the perfumers, because they're the ones who created these things, right? Like, they should be always getting credit. It irritates me beyond belief when houses just won't give you that information. I'm like, tell us, because they deserve the credit for their work. But also, I think that once you do start to see which perfumers really cater to your taste, it allows you to kind of focus in on what you might want to try, maybe what would be like a safer blind buy if you're going to do that versus not. So I just, for a variety of reasons, I think it is very important to pay attention to the creators of your fragrances. So anyway, please tell me your favorites. Leave them down below. I'm sure I forgot some of my favorites as well. And if you want to give me, this would be fun, if you want to tell me like some of your favorites, but then also your absolute favorite perfume from each of those perfumers, I think that would be fun to see as well. So leave me those comments down below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. And as always, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.